Right then, well, I think we've got as many as we're going to get today. So I'd like to welcome Martin Kubler, who's going to give us some advice and information and ideas on change and innovation. If you'd like, I'm just going to mute everybody just to make it a bit.
All right. Can I share?
Just a minute, and then if you unmute yourself. Martin.
Yes, I have unmuted myself. Can I share?
Yes, it's available to share.
Wait one second, because I don't see a button.
Down at the bottom.
Yeah. No, I know where it usually is. I just like damn it. Talking about change. Okay. I mean, I'm not sure in how far the following can be seen as advice. What I have it built as is, and I'm just going to share this in. I have this built as some thoughts about innovation and change in our industry. Now, it is fairly sort of hospitality specific, but it's probably something in there that that also people from the supplier side will find useful, if for no other reason than in order to understand the operators better when it comes to things like innovation and change. So just quickly for those that don't really know me, I spent the last 16 years in the Middle East. First working in hotels, running hotels, and then running my own consulting company. I've recently relocated to Sweden, and I'm currently based in, well, today anyway, sunny Stockholm. What I do is I really specialize in working with startups, family-run companies, mostly independents, and businesses in customer-centric and service-critical industries. Mostly in regards to marketing and operational troubleshooting. And I have somewhat of a longer running connection to innovation, having worked on this topic for at least the last sort of 5-6 years. And it's interesting to see how that has grown in importance over the years. So a couple of years ago, there really wasn't that much focus on innovation, and that has steadily grown. Now, what started it all for me anyway? Many moons ago, I was working in a hotel in Qatar, in Doha, and it was run by a very jolly Scottish GM who he really liked running hotels, and he really wanted to offer the guests the best. So he decided that in the new rooms that were being opened, he is going to install Japanese high-tech toilets. Like the all singing, all dancing kind of toilets, and more buttons than your stereo, such likes. This very quickly became the single most complained upon item in the entire hotel, with people either saying it didn't work, or it did work, but they pressed the wrong button, and all sorts of catastrophes ensued. Or the one that I liked the most was a gentleman who wrote in the comment card that he really only wants to stay in a hotel, and he doesn't really want to have a degree in engineering in order to operate simple items like a toilet. So that it got me thinking. This together with equally complicated shower controls, and then of course we have the bedside control panels. Those that are supposed to make your life more comfortable because you don't have to get out of bed in order to switch off the lights. We all know that when you press the all out button, there is always one light that remains on. It's usually the light that's at the far end of the room. So you have to then get up, traipse through the entire room, switch off that light, make it back to your bed in darkness. These were all things that at one stage were built as super innovative. And perhaps they were to some extent. However, in my opinion, I think they're kind of missing the point, because while they may be innovative, they don't necessarily also add value, and they only look at innovation from the side of technology. They're missing the human element, and also they don't take into account people's ability to let us say accommodate change, especially when it comes to relatively simple things that are frequently used: your toilets, your showers, your light switches. So that's what got me started on the whole love affair with innovation, and then in sort of following on from that with change. So why talk about innovation and change now? Because I suppose we have to say, thanks to COVID-19 in that sense, there has been a much increased focus on innovation in the industry, and not all of that tech related. So during the various lockdowns across the world, hotels and restaurants had to find new ways of making money, and quite a few of them did, and quite a few of them sort of thought outside the box. But the whole situation is also really, and that's a sharpened the mind of many of us in the industry, saying, okay, look, if something like this can happen, that sort of is such a fundamental change, we need to look at how we're doing things going forward. And yeah, people always talk about the new normal, which I'm quite tired of. But the fact is, okay, so many things that we used to do, we're probably going to be doing differently going forward, and perhaps also people will expect different things from hotels and restaurants. So that's one point. The other point is that, of course, millennials, the generations entering the world of travel and work today, are quite different from us old folks. So they are much more focused on experiences than perhaps necessarily on technology. So that will simply add, if you want to keep the future customers happy, again, we need to start looking at how we can do things differently. And then the third point, simply because I had that part of the screen to fill, I was like, why not? Now is as good a time as any other time to start thinking about how to do things differently. Okay. So whenever I talk about change and innovation with people in the industry, I come across a fair few opinions, and over the years I've come to realize that the main challenges when it comes to changing things, or when it comes to doing things differently, are the following six. So one is complacency. Oh, like, look, I mean, the place is running really well. Everything is good. It's hunky-dory. We don't need to do anything. It'll all be fine. This type of stuff. The next thing is that it doesn't make any money. Okay, like, how much do I have to put in, and how much am I getting out? We're in that sense a very sort of return of investment focused industry. If something doesn't make money, it's really hard to get it approved in the capex. The problem with this whole change and innovation things is that very often you're taking a bit of a gamble, and you don't know whether it's eventually going to make money or not. And equally, very often it won't make money from day one. So that's a challenge, and that also is a reason why in the industry as a whole, innovation is so tech specific, because people find that tech, at least you can measure the investment versus the output. So if I install a new piece of POS software, something like that, then I know exactly how much I paid for it, and hopefully I can measure what I'm getting out. Of course, there's also the people who say, like, look, it costs too much. Okay, many people from the supplier side will be familiar with this. Hotels complaining about is the price of a certain piece of equipment. Eventually, after many months, they will sign off on it, they will install it. They are then so busy that they're not reading the manual, and 6 months down the line, they come back to the supplier and say, like, look, what you sold us doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't do the job. It doesn't do what you promised us. It does. For us, it's a waste of money. And the supplier would say like, no, it's because you haven't taken the time to read the manual. So that is another challenge. Of course, also people are saying, look, but our guests are happy. It's a bit sort of in the complacency type scenario. Yes, the guests are happy. Yes, you're reading the comment cards, but comment cards is purely, or the comments that you're getting from guests are purely reactive in the sense that they're describing something that has happened to them. Rarely will they describe something that they would like to see, and I'm coming back to that in a minute. For a lot of people, they think that innovation and change always has to be super big, super radical. They don't like it. It's going to be too radical. People won't like it. Let's not do it. They fail to see that a lot of small changes also make a big change, and that innovation isn't always on the level of moon landings. Okay? And then the last one is that I don't have time, and this really is actually one of the biggest ones for a lot of hotels, is because they are so busy and staffing levels are what they are, so that everybody is constantly busy and they don't really, in that sense, have time to take a moment to see or to sit down and say like, how can we do things differently? It doesn't always need money. Sometimes all it needs really is time. I touched on this when we talked about millennials and those generations, the younger generations entering the world of travel and the workforce now. So people are changing. Okay? So maybe in the 50s and 60s, perhaps in the 70s still, people went to hotels and they booked hotels for different reasons than they do today. At the time, technology in hotels was a major sort of sales driver. Hey, we have color TV, we have AC, we have a jacuzzi tub, we have whatever, you name it. And those were all items that a lot of people didn't have at home. Well, these days, very rarely do people book hotels because of fixtures, fittings, or technologies that they don't have at home. They're booking hotels for different reasons, and a lot of those these days is experience driven. So I want to, when I'm staying somewhere, I want to experience more than just the four walls of my hotel room. And I would like, and we're also interacting with hotels differently than we used to do. Before, it was sort of more transactional, and they essentially, they were a place to stay. But these days, for very many people, it becomes much more than just a sort of simple "take my money, give me a room" type of transaction. So we need to be mindful of that. And in my opinion, this is really what it comes down to: sort of why people, or why we ought to give more time and thoughts to innovation and change. It's about competitive advantage, and it's about having unique selling points going forward. When you look at a hotel, in the end, it's just four walls, a bed, and a bathroom. All hotels essentially are that. Okay? Yes, the market is price driven, but price isn't going to be the only thing anymore. A lot of the marketplaces are super crowded, and at any given price level, guests will have a large choice of properties. So we're looking for something else that makes us stand out. Number one here is what I call safe and boxy versus real and immersive. So you have a choice of staying in something that is safe and boxy. You sort of box standard international flagged chain property versus something that is independent, that is perhaps a one-off, that's unique, that allows for a much more real and immersive experience of a destination that you're staying in than an international chain offering. The problem is that the psychological threshold for somebody to try out something that is not safe and boxy is much, much higher. You see this also when you're abroad and you watch what tourists do, particularly American tourists. You will find that instead of going to a small coffee shop in, say, when they're in Istanbul, they tend to go to Starbucks because, well, I know what I'm getting, right? So we're looking at getting people to cross that psychological threshold into the unknown. As I said, yes, price rules, but competition now is on experience. Somebody isn't going to recommend a hotel or a restaurant for that sense purely based on price. They're going to recommend a place because of the experience, because something has happened to them during the time in the hotel that makes them go, wow, this works in both positive as negative, right? If I have an average experience, I'm not going to leave a comment, I'm not going to leave a review, I'm just going to check in, check out, happy days. This isn't good enough anymore. In order to get those recommendations, in order to get those mentions on social media, what I've put here, what we're looking for is we're looking for guests, not just to tell others, but we're looking for them to help us create ripples. So social mentions that then travel through the social networks and other people see it, and based on that, they then decide to stay with us. Like what I put here is randomness and the unexpected build loyalty and create ripples. I'm not talking about the unexpected negative, but the unexpected positive. So if something happens to you during a stay that is out of what you expect on the positive scale, then that is something that that you're going to tell others about it, and that will then create ripples. And particularly with the younger travelers and the new generations, is these experiences that they talk about, okay, and that they tell others about it. Lastly, okay, personally, I find that hotels, when it comes to decision making, a lot of hotels are relatively slow. Okay, we need to borrow a bit from other industries and generally get a little bit faster in making decisions. In terms of, not just in terms of investment, but in terms of what we're going to try and in terms of what we're going to do. And one of the reasons that holds us back from doing so is that still to the date, a lot of hotels are very silo heavy. So you've got your various departments, and they talk or don't talk to each other. Front office, you know, doesn't really like housekeeping, but we'll talk to them. F&B, well, we'll talk to engineering. Nobody likes to talk to finance. This is an issue. So we need to break down those silos in order to enable faster decision making, because that will let us test new ideas and test new thoughts to see whether they work or not. If we want to get started with that, we firstly need to stop using reactive data and we need to start using proactive data. What I mean by that is we need to stop looking purely at comment cards and at guest comments, because as I said before, those provide reactive data. My bed was too hard. My carpet wasn't cleaned properly. Solution, okay, make bed softer, clean carpet better in the future. Purely reactive. Right? What they don't give us, an idea of what guests would like to see. The reason they don't do that is because many times guests even don't know exactly what it is that they would like to see. To figure this out, we need to observe how guests actually behave in our property. And we need to sort of gather these observations and bring those together across the various teams. And then see, okay, look, during the last 1 month, I had 10 people asking me for a specific type of cuisine or a specific dish in the restaurant. That's one server. If that server does not talk to other servers, those 10 comments from guests will purely go into the ether of nowhere. If they're coming together with others and then realize, oh yeah, but I also had 5, and I had, you know, that's the beginning of an idea. Seeing how guests walk through a property, seeing how guests behave in the property, so taking in observations, provides A, data, and B, the ability to strike up a conversation, and is in conversations much more than through comment cards or reviews that we learn what people really would like to see. We also need to get tied much more into the community, and a lot of hotels are already very good at that, because not just the local community of hotel, but us as an industry, we need to tap more into our community power. And again, that's something that the lockdowns and the whole COVID situation to a large extent actually has helped with it, because we're now much better connected than we were before. 2 weeks ago, I did a session with a hotel in South Africa, and they did a lot of really clever things that is worthwhile. That's worthwhile sharing. So we need to start not, thinking not so much of this is my competitor, or oh, this is Hilton, this is Marriott. But we need to really sort of see what is it that they do right, and what is it that that we could ideas we could take on and perhaps change so that they suit us better. And lastly, we need to torpedo the silos, right? And again, in that sense, not everything about the pandemic is total rubbish, because to some extent, the whole COVID situation has led to, you might say, but it has also created silos because we're all stuck at home. Well, yes, but at the same time, it has broken down silos because people actually started talking across teams, across hotels, across communities, across industries even, and that can only be a helpful thing. So so proactive data, observations, real conversations that we're having. Looking at what others are doing, asking others what they're doing, whether something has worked, whether it hasn't worked, and getting rid of these artificial boundaries between our teams in the properties. These are all first steps that don't really cost any money, will cost time, but can be started at any time, really. And my argument of this is better sooner than later, because now, while the whole sort of upheaval that the industry has gone through is still fresh in our mind, is a great time to start doing things differently. When people come back to work after a furlough, they very often probably don't want to do exactly the same thing that they did before, or want to do things in exactly the same manner. So now is a great time to actually say, like, hang on a second, this is how we used to do it. How could we do it differently going forward? And in the end, that then sort of creates ripple effects. Happier guests, happier customers, happier employees, and in the end, a better product and a better hotels and restaurants. So I suppose you get this presentation later on. So there's a couple of examples I have put in here of places that I think do this really well. This is Citizen M Hotels. They just started out doing things completely different from the very beginning. The way the hotel is built and designed and structured, the way hotel room looks, but also the way service provided in these hotels. That's from studenthotels.com, which sounds like a wholesale residence, and that's how it started out. But they were the first ones to really bring together hotel living, co-working, and meetings even before the pandemic. So that's a good place to look for ideas. And then for those more familiar with the Middle East, this is from Rove Hotels. And again, Rove Hotels is a brand that was built from the ground up as being different. Their hotel rooms are still also only hotel rooms, but the way they are designed and the way the service provided on property is quite different from a number of other hotels. It's very open and is much more, I find, proactive than it is reactive. So people have and companies have started to sort of get into the swing of things, and I hope that the ramblings here have given you some food for thought to say, like, all right, look, let's see what we can do, whether this is something that we want to spend some time on. I think you should, and then what it is that that you can do as a first step. And as I said, it's very important to realize that we're not talking about flying to Mars or landing on the moon or creating another Apple or creating another Microsoft or Tesla. We're talking about starting with small changes that then build up to something bigger. Essentially, what we're looking at is creating a culture of change and innovation in your organization, in your hotel, in your restaurant, that then grows forward and pays the dividend. So thank you very much. That was it from me. Let me stop sharing my eyes. I think it's automatically stopped. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure. Is there normally questions or answers? I have no idea how this works. You're on mute.
Phase of the year. You're on mute. Anybody got any questions for Martin? Anybody got any comments or points?
I have a question. I don't understand what silo means.
Oh, okay. So silos essentially are little bunkers of people, teams. All right. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, because not every team is also a silo, but we're looking at teams or departments in an organization that doesn't really connect with the outside world. And the outside world, there is the other teams and departments. So for example, you might have front office. They have their own. They have 3 briefings a day. They have their own briefing, like their own meeting log and everything. But they don't really, other than perhaps in the morning briefing, they don't really interact with the other departments unless they need something from them. Call housekeeping. Is the room ready yet? No, it's not ready. Why? You're always so slow. Okay. Call finance. Has the supplier been paid yet? No. Why not? We don't have money. Why you don't tell the supplier? He's calling me 50 times a day. So there is a lot of time spent interacting with other departments, but not in a productive manner. And this then sort of leads to silos, where knowledge that one department has is not automatically being transferred to another department. There is a lot of knowledge that engineering has, that F&B has, which would be useful to be shared across the entire organization, but that's not happening in many cases, which then means if I am thinking what I can do differently, I'm not seeing the full picture, so I cannot make the right call because I'm only seeing part of the information.
Wonderful, thank you, and thank you very much for a fantastic talk. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's true about the silos. Every hotel has the same issue, and it's one of the most important things, I think, is promoting that conversation between the different areas of the business. Cross training is a brilliant way of doing that, because people actually get to see what the other people are doing and suddenly realize, oh, it would help them if they knew that these guests like this or whatever, so definitely. There's some Suzanne has asked, how do you get hotels to embrace change and innovation?
Somebody said before, we are very resilient lot. We're also in that sense a little bit resilient to change and innovation. I mean, the honest answer is probably that many hotels won't do it until it's too late. Our industry, by and large, there is a large part of it which is extremely reactive. Okay, there are also exemptions where they are more proactive. But I think once hotels realize that that travelers are changing, that people that stay in hotels are changing, that they have different expectations, and that business isn't purely price driven anymore, they will get on board or innovation and change. So Marriott some years ago actually opened an innovation lab, which is the first I know of research and development essentially entity within the industry. And they're testing everything there, from light switches to new ways of serving people. That's sort of all tested there before it gets rolled out. And there's always, so something starts at the top where the people have the money, and then eventually it will filter down. So I think it's going to be a gradual process, but it will happen because hotels will be forced into it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm quite actually I'm in my business. I know exactly how difficult it is to get hotels to innovate, because getting people to realize that sort of they don't actually have to have a financial controller sat at that desk 24 hours, 8 hours a day, every day, and they don't have to pay him for being sat there all that time is quite difficult. And it's the same with like HR and sales and everything. Independent hotels still find it difficult to grasp that idea of quality over quantity. But yeah, somebody here, we've got Austin has asked, what would you say was the #1 innovation that you've seen over the past 10 years?
Well, I mean, obviously it depends how to some extent how you define innovation. If you'd wanted to go down the tech route, then obviously there are Marriott's robots that bring you little things like the toothpaste and the newspaper and this type of stuff, and those sort of by and large work really well. If you want to go down the non-tech route, then I think is the open lobby concept, and the fact that a lot of hotels have realized that, all right, hang on a second, I don't want my guys to be hiding behind the desk. So you now see in many hotels that there, in that sense, isn't desk anymore, and I think that's that because it has also provided new life for hotel lobbies, which previously were always sort of a bit, like train station waiting rooms. I mean, you spend time in the lobby when either you're waiting to be served, or you're waiting to check in, or you're waiting to check out, or you have nowhere else to sit. So that for me is actually also an example of innovation that the industry has.
I think IT has helped that, hasn't it? Because now you can carry a tablet about, you can do a check-in, you can ask somebody room service, you can do everything on the tablet, talking to guests at the same time, and they can even do it themselves, and all you have to do is then take it to them. So yeah, it's changed a lot, and I think there'll be a lot more progression towards that sort of.
This is also an example of where technology and humans interact in the right way. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Anybody else got any positive?
Do I see a change with the new generation of hotels? Yes, I do. Okay. Because if you look at the new generation of hotels, and these are precisely the type of people behind Citizen and behind Student Hotels, behind Rove Hotels, like the Rove leadership team, they're all a below average age, I think, for our industry in terms of leadership. And yes, I mean, they've started to do things differently because they've realized that a lot of the things that or a lot of the ways that things are being done are actually stupid, and can and should be done differently. Okay. So this always reminds me that years ago, when I was still working in London, in front office, I'd run out of paper clips, and I wanted to acquisition new paper clips from the stores. But I'd also run out of acquisition forms. So I went to the finance and I said, I need a new bunch of acquisition forms because I need to make an acquisition for the paper clips. He said, oh, no, you should have used the last acquisition form to make an acquisition for new acquisition forms. I said, now what do I do? He said, well, I don't know. I mean, come back tomorrow. I said, just give me an acquisition. No, they're all numbered. I cannot give you the acquisition form. Well, that's how we run out of paper clips. And I'm talking about this, like where people are looking at this and actually are saying, hang on a second, that's just goddamn stupid. And I mean, there needs to be a better way of doing this, right?
Yeah. It happens quite a lot, doesn't it? Where people just stuck in their sort of in their view, as it were. But yeah,